Once again, a big shout out, a big thank you to everyone who has joined us over the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. It's only $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. We just put up a brand new video over there yesterday, and be warned, it's not for the faint of heart. We talk about things like they should be talked about in public, openly and honestly, and without restriction. We talked about a very controversial subject. A lot of people don't know that in a great many states in the United States, your marriage can be taken from you simply based on one partner having a medical condition. Tennessee is one of those states. Missouri is another. We're going to do a follow-up video that delineates this. Yes, that's right. Simply based on a medical condition, your marriage can be removed from you legally by government. Join us. Psychological Operations 101. If you want to win, you have to understand the rules and how the human mind works and how they use tricks to hide things from you, tricks of language. We'd love to have you. Now, recently, over the last couple of months, I've been talking about some issues here that have ruffled a few feathers too, about different alternative lifestyles. There's been a point to it. The same people that are so bothered by other people's lifestyles are the same people who love to talk about liberty and freedom and having government leave them alone, even though they want government to intervene on their behalf to change things. And I'm going to use two specific examples, primarily from the Trump crowd, to show this blatant level of hypocrisy. There were two major stories that brought Trump to power. One of the big ones was Epstein and what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, and did he do this and that and the other. If I asked most of my audience right now, I said, do you serve the law of God or do you serve the laws of men? Which do you choose? I'm sure many would say, well, I serve the laws of God. Well, if you serve the law of God, then you need to come out and say vociferously that false witness has been borne against Mr. Epstein and Prince Andrew. Because by the laws of God, they've done nothing wrong. You see, a law of man says that if we issue a birth certificate to a little girl at some point in time, and then somebody has relations with her before she achieves 18 anniversaries of that birth certificate, then that person is guilty of a crime. See, that's a law of man. That's not the law of God, not the law of logic. It sure isn't the law of science or common sense. And I could prove that to you. You take this picture back 100 years in this country, and you take it before a constable and say a crime has been committed. A man has done something horrible to a child. He would look at the picture and say, oh, okay, where's the child? And you point to the person in the center, and he goes, look, I'm not a doctor, but that's no child. It's a very young woman, but it's not a child. See, by the law of man, she's a minor. But by every other law, she's a young woman. And this would be bearing false witness, calling this man a criminal. You could take this young woman at this point in time in her life to any doctor, any nurse practitioner, and say, do an evaluation of this individual, and nobody would say that you were looking at a child. It is only by the law of man, a legal definition of a piece of paper that they issue, the birth certificate, that says that that young woman is a child, is a minor. See, it's a law of man thing. Because, of course, 17 years and 362 days and the man is a horrible, evil, terrible criminal that needs to be completely ostracized from society. But 18 years and 2 days, about a 6-day difference. Oh well. You see, that's the difference between man and God. God makes sense. God doesn't do things illogically. See, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Criminals don't obey laws. That law that said that the young woman in the middle of that picture was a child or a minor isn't even enforceable. Remember when Jesus said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone"? What he was saying was that nobody standing in that crowd didn't have blood on their hands. These people have blood all over their hands, and they do not have the moral authority to enforce any law of any kind. Point number 2, build the wall. To me, this was the most hilarious thing I had ever heard in my life. A bunch of people, Trump supporters, calling themselves conservatives, patriots, people who love liberty, on their knees petitioning government to spend billions of their dollars protecting them. No other nation in the history of the world has ever done such a thing, other than, you ready for this? The Communist Chinese. A group of people that they allegedly, this group of people that support Donald Trump, that they allegedly hate. We can't let this country become like Communist China, so let's do the one thing the Communist Chinese did and build a giant wall. You see, it doesn't matter. Through all of the wars, through all of the history, Spain is still Spain. No walls. France is still France. No walls. Germany, Italy. How did Europe survive? World War I, World War II, all of the wars that happened throughout all of the Middle Ages. Oh, sure, some of the lines have changed, and some of the names have changed, but Europe is still Europe. This is, generally speaking, the exact same map that existed in this country in 1880, 150 years ago. It wouldn't matter where you draw the line for Florida. Floridians are going to be Floridians. And the final piece of evidence here for the spirit of fear. Same group of people that want the wall built. Same group of people that haven't come out and vociferously said Epstein did nothing wrong. Do this on a scale like I've never seen before. I used to work in the moving industry. In fact, for quite a long time, I worked in the moving industry. And people would hire movers having basements like this. And we would have to come in and pack for days and days and days. All of this stuff. Break down all of these racks. Truckload after truckload after truckload of stuff they were never going to use. I'm not saying don't have an emergency kit. Have some candles, some extra canned goods. But the extent to which these people took it was mind-boggling. Some of the gas stations that we would stop at on the way to our job in the morning didn't have as much stuff on the shelf as the people we were moving. But it always has an end. And the end is always fear. So you can never prep enough. You can never prep enough to where you think, you know what, tonight I'm going to go to bed in peace. I'm going to go to bed in peace, knowing I've done enough. Luke 12:33 and 34. Sell that ye have and give alms. Provide yourselves bags, which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. These people that came to this country way back in the 15 and 1600s would look at the modern group of people, lionizing them, and be horrified. They came here with nothing, virtually nothing, whatever they could fit in the ship. And most of that had to just account for what they were going to eat and drink on the way here. And they started again with nothing. Not trying to become rich, not trying to become powerful. And they were amongst people, not only the natives did they not speak their language, but others from Europe. Not every British person understood French. Not every French person understood Dutch. The Spanish were here before anyone. And with all of their getting and all of their conquest, they didn't build walls. They built fences around fortresses. This is true. Every house in the nation of Bali is built like this because they believe in evil spirits roaming the night. Yes, that's right. In Bali, they build walls around every single home. And most homes are not just a single building, they're home complexes with walls around them. But why? Because they believe evil spirits roam the night. And that this little 5-foot wall will protect them from evil spirits. How is to say that one is a Hoosier, for example, from Indiana, or a Kentuckian, or a Tennessean, or a Floridian? Yeah, it denotes a line on a map. But what we have in common versus any relative that we would have from 100 years ago, no matter where they lived, we would have a lot more in common. Meaning that if I were to try to sit down with a Floridian from, let's say, 1850 and have a conversation, it would be very, very difficult to find any common ground. Why? Because of 172 years. But I could talk to somebody very easily from Indiana, even though that's 1,000 miles away from the same world, and the same thing would apply in both directions. This era has been romanticized about what it really was. They show pictures like this, and oh, the floor is so neat, and you've got the grandfather clock, and looks like grandma spinning up something, maybe a scarf or something, and you got sister cooking something over the fire, and the children are playing, and mom's rolling out some dough, and yeah, no. You see, these people minded their own business. But those of you out there who are for sure, absolutely for sure, that places like Texas and Florida and, that they'll be the leaders when it comes to liberty. Texas residential sex club ban royal swingers. You see, some people got together because they didn't like what was going on under someone else's roof behind their closed doors. Let me say this again. In Texas, there's a group of people, liberty-loving Texas. See, they had a club that was behind closed doors. You needed to go by invite. And people that were around in the neighborhood didn't like the idea of it in their neighborhood. So they had it gotten rid of. Quote, "It's crazy that they want to force their morality down our throats," said Don Burton, 45, a regular guest at the parties. "We're all frustrated." Now, here's the thing about this. You know how they got him? You know how they got him shut down? It didn't have anything to do with the morality. They had to go to law and say they were running a business in a place that government hadn't zoned for business. And that's the irony of all ironies. That they got all huffy and all bent out of shape because of something that was going on behind closed doors that they didn't like. And they had to go to law to find some technicality because they were collecting money for something, apparently. It made it a violation. See, just like here. Just like here. And I know a lot of people have already been psychologically twisted to look at this picture and be reviled by it. Had the government not told you, and the mainstream media not told you what to feel and what to think when you see this picture, had they not done that to you, you would look at it like any other normal family photo. But because you know who the people are, and you know what the story is, the government-approved story, you have a feeling that you think is a result of thought or some level of morality. You take this picture back 100 years ago, and everybody would ask you, where is the child? Where's the child? We don't see a child. Some might have said, we see a girl that needs to cover her belly button. That's not an appropriate thing to be wearing in public, but it's actually in a home, so it's not in public. You see, this is, things people don't want to hear. Trump supporters all over the place saying, oh, what did Epstein know? And the client list. And we want to convict all of these other people. When these people shouldn't have been convicted in the first place. Because you choose. You want to serve government? You want to serve the U.S. government? Fine. You can serve them. But you cannot serve God at the same time. And under the laws of God, and like I said, logic, common sense, and science, there is no child in this picture. Ergo, there is no pedophilia going on. It is ridiculous. And when the lights go out, and people start making decisions for themselves based on either their allegiance to the government or some ridiculous sense of morality, or just using good common sense, that's where things are going to get way difficult. And that's why I brought up this particular subject, because it'll be the divider. It's not going to be who has what guns or who has what dried food or who knows how to use this Band-Aid or whatever. It's going to be nothing like that. It's going to be all these different little standards of morality and things that people are too afraid to say and too afraid to do. That I'm personally not. You could take this picture to South America, and they would ask you where the child is. There's no child in this picture. And if this is the case, and you do honor, then there has been this huge bearing of false witness about a great many things that were not so. And one is gone and the other is imprisoned. For those of you trying to hold out for the whole prostitution angle, what of Rahab? The Bible describes Rahab even in Hebrews as one of great faith. You don't know the story of Rahab. She was the one that helped Joshua's spies get inside Jericho. So, I don't care however you want to dice this. This was one of the most horrible stories that I heard a bunch of ignorant people, Trump-supporting people, parrot without questioning it at all. Those who would say, oh, we always question government baloney. Not if they're building a wall, you're not. If they're building a wall, you're all for them. And the 2020 sniffles, shouldn't have been surprised. Warp speed, really. You know, I've made this allegation about how these people worship Star Trek. Where do you think the term warp speed comes from? I've made this allegation for a long time, that these idiots from that era worship the Star Trek franchise. Where do you think the term warp speed comes from? So, I will leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.